I'm Laura Ingraham in Washington. Kavanaugh cleared. That, according to a supplemental FBI report that every senator has read at this hour. And in moments, we'll show you how the left is lashing out in response. We're going to get exclusive reaction from the White House when Kellyanne Conway joins us live. Marilyn Matlin makes a rare television appearance, and Matt Schlapp will be along as well. And 1 week after his fiery defense of Judge Kavanaugh became the rallying cry for conservatives, Lindsey Graham joins me tonight on where things stand now and where they go from here. Plus, an Ingraham angle investigation. We've been doing some digging into just how Christine Ford's name was leaked. Stay here for that. But first, the Democrats' desperate salvage operation. That's the focus of tonight's angle. After another week of delay in the Kavanaugh confirmation saga, the FBI supplemental report is in, and it appears the Democrats have lost another one.
What we know for sure is the FBI report did not corroborate any of the allegations against Judge Kavanaugh.
Even the undecided Hamlet figure, Jeff Flake, said the report doesn't contain any new corroboration, while Susan Collins called it very thorough. Now, let me say again, the report, all 46 pages of it, apparently produced zero corroborating evidence to back up the accusations of Kavanaugh's accusers. But as we've come to expect, straightforward, factual revelations have zero influence on Democrats going wild across America. For instance, at the University of Vermont, they held a cancel class, cancel Kavanaugh rally. How clever. In Brooklyn, New York, and Bel Air, Maryland, there were similar calls to kill Kavanaugh's nomination. And here in Washington, D.C., the hate machine was ramped up to full throttle.
Our democracy has been hijacked by the powerful who don't plan to share it. So, yes, I am angry, but let me make it clear. I have a plan.
But isn't anger most effective when it becomes a chant?
We are about to march. We need everyone to pay attention.
Oh, who needs chants that rhyme anyway? And what would anti-Kavanaugh, pro-abortion protests be without a few Hollywood heavyweights? Well, model Emily Ratajkowski showed some outrage and some midriff. And comedian Amy Schumer was, as usual, politically understated.
A vote for Kavanaugh is a vote saying women don't matter. Yes. Let's stay together. Let's fight. Let's keep showing up.
Well, the good thing is that when she was arrested, she actually didn't have to put on prison garb. She was already wearing it. And all over the Capitol, there were roving survivors accosting senators undecided about Kavanaugh's nomination. So they attempted at one point this afternoon, you'll love this, to pull a Flake and bully senators like Joe Manchin of West Virginia into casting a no vote.
As a survivor, I don't understand how you can't look me in the eye. Why are you going to vote yes on this? Can you tell me how you're going to vote?
No, I'm telling you. I'm talking to my report tonight.
Well, how are you not listening to us as survivors?
I am listening to you.
Are you? You're going to get in this elevator? How are you going to vote? Tell me.
Yo, folks, step back.
Oh, I love that. Step back. Why are they always saying, look at me? We see you. Believe me, we're averting our gaze. The Democrats' brazen intimidation and harassment tactics, I don't know, I think they're a total turnoff. Americans just don't like this stuff. Most people just want things to calm down. Well, Rasmussen's daily tracking poll has the president's approval today at 50%, not bad. A new IBD poll finds it at 40%, a 4-point gain from last month. And even better, that same poll shows that the supercharged enthusiasm is on the Republican side. The Democrats' advantage tanked from 11 points last month to just 2 points this month. Still, the Democrats will not give up.
The most notable part of this report is what's not in it. As we noted by the White House, the FBI did not interview Brett Kavanaugh, nor did the FBI interview Dr. Blasey Ford.
Given how limited these documents were and how limited the scope of this investigation was, we are reiterating our call that the documents with proper redaction be made public. Why shouldn't all of America see the facts?
Okay, I think Feinstein should have worn a white scarf for surrender. Don't you think that would have been more appropriate? Well, Americans now have the facts. Democrats wanted a witch hunt, and it fizzled over a lack of evidence. The facts Americans will now focus on, I think, are the ones the left fear the most. The economic record of Donald J. Trump. Jobless claims have dropped to a 49-year low. We now have 4.2% GDP growth, with projections now to match or exceed that in the upcoming quarter. Manufacturing jobs, remember President Obama said they were never coming back, are growing at their fastest rate in 23 years. Trump's Republican Party is actually offering something called results, also on foreign policy, trade, the agenda that people voted for. Meanwhile, the Democrats offer Americans only this.
Why aren't you brave enough to talk to us and exchange it with us? Don't you wave your hand at me. I wave my hand at you.
When you grow up, I'll be funny.
When I grow up, we grow up. You and I grow up. How dare you talk to women that way? How dare you?
Senator, do you believe women?
Is it over yet? Oh, there we go. Well, the door has closed, but Democrats are still howling or screeching. You just heard that. Again, none of this is a governing agenda. It's just more chaos, or harassment, anger, and agitation. And you really want to vote for more of that in November? And that's the angle. And joining me now is Code Pink's Ariel Gold, a former clerk for Judge Kavanaugh, Jennifer Mascott, and a former advisor for both President Bush and Vice President Cheney, Mary Matlin. And first to Ariel. Got to go to you, Ariel. Democrats kind of complained that they wanted an FBI investigation. Now they got it, and now they're whining that it's not enough. What is enough? Zero corroborating evidence, 46 pages. Even Susan Collins seems to say it's very thorough.
I think the real question is why so many women Republican senators are not caring about the experiences of women. And specifically, I was in Susan Collins' office tonight with a bunch of protesters, most of whom were her own constituents, and she refused to come and meet with them.
So you just barged in? Is that your new tactic?
Why shouldn't constituents be in the office of their representative?
Well, were they, you know, that sound of the screaming earlier at the elevator? Do you think anyone finds that in any way enticing, influential, attractive, convincing? The screaming is not convincing. It's kind of just cover your ear stuff. I don't understand how you guys think that's working. Obviously, you flamed out in this event, in this effort. You guys flamed out.
We saw over 300 people arrested today, thousands of people taking over the Senate building. This was people power, democracy in action.
Do you guys have any jobs? Like, how do you guys do that? I know you're Code Pink. I don't know if you get paid. Do you get paid by Code Pink?
I am on staff with Code Pink, yes.
Okay, so you get paid to do this. I assume a lot of the other people there are either taking time off from work or their mommy and daddy are paying their bills still. Because I mean, how does that work?
This affects generations to come. This is a lifetime appointment. I myself am the mother of 2 children. My daughter is 15, and I shudder to think of what this means for her, the message that she's getting.
You're worried that your daughter will not be able to what?
I'm worried that my daughter is getting a message from Congress that her experiences, that her safety is not important.
But is it about abortion? So you're worried your daughter would not be able to get an abortion?
I'm also worried that my daughter will not have the right to control her own reproduction.
I just want to know what we're talking about.
There are multiple things that I'm worried about with my daughter.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to know what we're talking about. Mary Matlin, you don't do a lot of TV anymore, but you know Brett Kavanaugh. You've known him for years. He was the Bush staff secretary. He's not like he's a Trump Republican. He was a Bush guy, a Bush appointee on the D.C. circuit. But, Mary, you saw this play out today. There's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of anger, a lot of agitation on the left. they feel like they have momentum even if they lose the fight against Kavanaugh. How do you see it?
It's anarchy. This is not civil discourse. It's anarchy, and it's destruction of the culture. We're sissifying men. You know, in my day of feminism, there's always been like a virulent strain of a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bike. So we've gone from not needing men to Jay's feminists want to castrate men, emasculate men. You know what's going to affect generations of people to come when men are behaving like sissies and women are behaving like anarchists, and that's the definition of successful feminism. It's not, if you want to stand up for women, what about Ashley, sweet little Ashley Kavanaugh, who sat outside President Bush's office, the epitome of class and decorum. Brett, who had the hardest job by my estimation in the White House as staff secretary, which requires absolute, unequivocal discretion and again, decorum. This huge record today, his friend Joel Kaplan, who's a friend of ours, is being attacked at Facebook. They're probably going to run him out of there because he attended the hearing of Brett Kavanaugh, whose wedding he was in and has been friends with for 20 years. People are really, this transcends politics, Laura. This is really, really about culture. And people are sick of everything from this idiocracy that's infusing and permeating every element of our culture, from football to public restrooms.
You can't get away from it.
Of the many... you cannot go anywhere. You can't go to football game. You can't go to...
No, you can't do anything. Because everybody has to be angry. Go ahead, quickly.
Of the many incredible, miraculous things that President Trump has done, and this is nothing short of a miracle what he's got done, but he's done it in the face of constant thwarting and lying and fallaciousness and these virile attacks on him and his person and his people. They're chasing his cabinet members and his staff out of restaurants. They're sending a private information of senators. He has exposed the hypocrisy and the ineptitude of the loyal opposition, Donane Dick and Senator Spartacus, and people are tuning in and they're saying, who are these people? I'm in New Orleans, like, who is this Blumenthal guy or they're Ellison, what is the standard? We don't even know what the standard is anymore. You have a picture of your wife, your girlfriend being beat up, and you have medical records, and you have no corroboration on Brett Kavanaugh, and you're just blowing up his life and his friend's life. People are really transcends politics.
Jennifer, I want to go to you. The cover of Time magazine, which you probably have seen, this is like all over the place. We're going to put it up on the screen so people see it. And it's a letter to white women who support Brett Kavanaugh. We need you to stand with women who are breaking the silence in spite of their terror and shame. I believe inside the bodies of some of those women who laughed at the rally were other impulses and feelings they weren't expressing. Time is short. Call your senators. Stop laughing and start fighting. That was the Eve Ensler, of course, Vagina Monologues, right? Vagina Monologues, am I getting that right, Raymond? Yes. So it's kind of like, you white women, how dare you laugh at survivors? How dare you dismiss survivors? And that's kind of an emotional thing. If someone is a survivor of sexual assault, no one should laugh at them. Right, no one wants to laugh at them. Yet this is not how I think a lot of fair-minded people are seeing at least this particular case.
So my background, of course, as you know, is like clerk for Judge Kavanaugh his first year, and he's an excellent jurist, and he himself has a lot of care for women. More than half of his law clerks were women. He's really done an amazing job of mentoring us, keeping up with us over the years.
I know, we all know that. We've heard that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but anything that you saw when you were working for him, and he's a judge for 12 years, 12 times 3, 36 clerks, right? About? So,
yes, 48.
Or so? 48
yes.
Clerks. Okay, so you had more than my time at the Court of Appeals. 48 clerks. Anything you saw in his behavior toward the more than half of the clerks being women would give you pause about the way he treats women?
Absolutely not. Absolute
nothing.
Character, no, nothing. Character,
nothing untoward, nothing a little...
Nothing anywhere close to anything like that. Absolutely gracious, patient, respectful, perfectly above board.
So were you shocked to hear of these allegations when they first were leaked to the Washington Post?
It was shocking. You know, Judge Kavanaugh, along the way, the entire time has categorically denied them. And, you know, they're totally inconsistent with everything that I've known about him or seen in his presence. And, you know, he's been an advocate for fair law and fair application of the law, and for women and men, and training up the next generation of lawyers. And I think if the Senate confirms him to the Supreme Court, he will apply the Constitution fairly and really try to look forward to justice for all Americans.
All right, Ariel, what's next for Code Pink? You guys lost this round. He's going to get confirmed. What next?
Well, we're not done, and we're going to be out there again tomorrow and the next day.
Doing what?
We're going to
Yelling?
be out there in the halls and in the streets calling for
What?
somebody for him to step down and for us to have a nomination of somebody with a different temperament, of somebody who hasn't lied under oath, of somebody who doesn't have these accusations. And there is tons of people that have squeaky clean records that we could see be nominated.
Okay, so you'd be in favor of Amy, like Coney Barrett, if she took his place, a woman, very strong woman. She has 7 kids. You'd be in favor of a woman?
I'm not saying that I would be in favor of them politically, but I think that that's a more appropriate nomination.
Okay, we got Code Pink on the record. Amy Coney Barrett, more appropriate than Brett Kavanaugh. Watch what you asked for there. I love this panel. We could talk to you guys for an hour. Thank you so much. And Mary, great seeing you, by the way. We want you on more. Here with reaction on how the White House is feeling tonight, we're joined by Counsel to the President, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thanks so much for being here tonight, staying up late for us.
Thank you, Laura, of course.
Absolutely. Any concern from the White House about where this vote count stands right at this moment? We don't know about Flake. Collins seems like a yes. Murkowski, no clue.
We're feeling very confident that everything the Democrats and even Dr. Ford have asked to be done in terms of major accommodations over the last 2.5 weeks have been done. The FBI supplemental is completed, and this is the 7th, count them 7th, FBI vetting that's been completed on Judge Kavanaugh, including 2 just this calendar year. So now it's time to vote. And we feel pretty confident. I'm not going to get ahead of those who are still sitting on the fence. But I will tell you, Laura, that there are some red state Democrats who have a really terrible decision to make. They either have to accede to the will of their voters who want Judge Kavanaugh confirmed, want that 9th seat filled in the United States Supreme Court, which just started its new session, or they can go and be complicit with a process that has been fraught with hysterics and hyperbole and hyperpartisanship and hapless Democrats trying to undo election results from 2 years ago, trying to slow down this nomination to get ahead of the midterm elections this year. And they have to decide whether they're going to be part of that leftward drift. They own all those protesters if they vote against Judge Kavanaugh. They own all the hysterics, all the craziness that you see there. And I think that we're going to have the votes, and he ought to be confirmed. And by the way, what's happened in our culture, Mary Madeline is absolutely correct. It won't go away once Judge Kavanaugh is on the Supreme Court. I think many people should be held for account for the lack of dignity and integrity.
They're out there tomorrow. They're going to be out there. They're going to be caught. They're going to be protesting. It's a right to protest. If this is America, you have a right to protest as long as it's civil and as long as people don't get hurt.
But it hasn't been.
Richard Blumenthal in Connecticut, of course, my home state, senator from Connecticut, said this today about this process, Kellyanne. Let's watch.
It strikes me as really a neglect of the FBI's duty, but the FBI is not responsible. I think that the blame lies with the White House that straitjacketed this investigation.
You heard that, Kellyanne, throughout the protest today, that this investigation was circumscribed artificially. The deadline was artificial. The real facts didn't get out. This was a rush job and, frankly, a con job. That's what the left and the protesters today were saying.
Well, he's lying, and of course he has a history of not being able to tell the truth. He lied about his service in Vietnam. He didn't serve in Vietnam, he served during Vietnam, and that's not just the difference of a word. So this is somebody who stood right behind Mazie Hirono of Hawaii last week when she said, "I just want to tell the men of America to shut up," and he smirked. And then I guess he didn't understand what she said because he's been talking since. That's one thing I agree with her. He should definitely stop lying about the FBI and this investigation and what the White House did or didn't do. The people that Dr. Ford herself claims could have corroborated her allegations were part of the FBI supplemental investigation. And guess what? Ding, ding, ding. They couldn't corroborate her allegations, it turns out. You have these fence-sitting senators who have very respectfully come forward, Laura, and said they think this was a thorough investigation. One of them said there's not a hint of any misconduct and that the allegations have not been corroborated. The point is this. There's no nominee that President Trump is going to put forward that's going to satisfy liberal Dick Blumenthal. There's no nominee that Code Pink would ever like.
This is about the midterms.
They have to admit This is about the midterms. But by the way, speaking of the midterms, I want to thank all these crazy liberals because they've done something that wasn't able to do. They've energized disparate Republicans.
Got to keep it up, though. Got to keep it up. Got 4 more weeks, 5 more weeks.
No,
got 5 more weeks.
No, there's no question about it. But I just want to tell these folks, of course, they have a right to protest. And the First Amendment says you can act crazy also. But to coin two phrases,
all right, we got to go, Kellyanne.
Time's up and move on. And they all think about that.
Kellyanne, thank you so much for making time for us tonight. Up next, we still have a major question on the table about this ongoing drama.
No more excuses with Cologuard.
We set for this weekend. We can't forget what happened at the very start of this whole fight. Most importantly, how did reporters get their hands on Christine Ford's account in the first place? Now, the Washington Post says that Ford made the initial contact through the anonymous tip line. And only after she had built a rapport with the Post reporter Emma Brown did Ford decide to come forward and give her on-the-record account. But I want to play this moment during the hearing, which really jumped out at me when I first watched it, that I don't think is getting enough attention. Ford was asked about the decision to come forward and said this.
Ultimately, because reporters were sitting outside of my home, a reporter appeared in my graduate classroom, and I mistook her for a student. And she came up to ask me a question, and I thought that she was a student, and it turned out that she was a reporter.
The Washington Post, in a statement to the Ingraham angle tonight, reaffirmed that Ford came to them solely through their tip line, and that it was reporters from other outlets who confronted Ford at her home and place of residence. So where does that leave us? Back to Democratic members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, remember Senator Feinstein was confronted about possible leaks last week and had this kind of interesting exchange with Senator John Cornyn.
Can you tell us that your staff did not leak it?
Oh, I don't believe my staff would leak it. I have not asked that question directly, but I do not believe
do you know
they
that?
would.
Have you asked your staff or other
I
staff
just
members
did.
of the Judiciary Committee?
Pardon me? Well, Jennifer reminds me I've asked her before about it, and that's true.
And that's true. Why would you say that?
Well, the Jennifer she referenced there is a woman named Jennifer Duck, her longtime chief of staff, who now works on the Judiciary Committee for the Democrats and seems to be the authority on the question of leaks. We take the Post at their word that their involvement in this story came solely through the tip line, but what we're less clear on tonight is how the other reporters found themselves in possession of Ford's identity. It's just strange. We reached out to Feinstein's office for clarity, and as of 5 minutes ago, they had not gotten back to us. Here to react, Howie Kurtz, host of Media Buzz right here on Fox News, and American Conservative Union head Matt Schlapp. All right, Howie, let's start with you. Assuming the Post is being honest here, how do we think all these other reporters found out about Ford and her account?
Extremely strong circumstantial evidence that it came from Feinstein's staff, because staff members don't tell the boss, hey, I'm about to leak this. And look where the leaks went. First, it was the left-wing site, The Intercept, that found out about the anonymous letter. Then the New York Times said, oh, it's about a woman and some sort of sexual thing. And then it was a BuzzFeed reporter, also a liberal site, that went to Ford's home and Ford's where she was teaching. And then finally, the New Yorker gets the actual letter and publishes it. It was at that point that Christine Ford said, people know who I am, journalists know who I am, I'm going to tell my own story to the Washington Post.
But, Matt, the idea that some person like Christine Ford just, okay, how can I get this? I'll just type it on the anonymous tip line. I don't know, it's my spidey senses. Something about this story just doesn't add up. And given the importance of guarding these documents, uncorroborated allegations of the Senate Judiciary Committee, to avoid this happening again, shouldn't it be the case that the cell phones, emails, texts, whether deleted or not, are preserved? You can get them back. Any text you delete, sorry, you can get it back. All those are preserved, and we find out any connections between Feinstein's office and the Washington Post, specifically friendships, romantic relationships between Feinstein's people, or friendships and the Post.
Yeah, so out of Thomas and Anita Hill, there was some learnings. And one of them is, when you go back and do this FBI report, only senators can look at it. I think we're going to need some learnings out of this, Laura. Here's what we know. Either Dr. Ford is a terrible victim in all this because she did want to stay confidential, or Dr. Ford, in combination with these Democrat staffers and members, and maybe Anna Eshie, the Democrat that started this whole thing, and maybe with the lawyers who they found for her, they were trying aggressively to push Dr. Ford to be public. So they were actually leaking on Dr. Ford to get her out there because they wanted the emotions of that hearing. That's what they wanted. They thought that would derail it all. They got the opposite.
Yeah, Howie, the Washington Post responded to us today by saying no one leaked anything to us. She ultimately decided she was willing to put her name on the record after reporters from other outlets appeared at her home and workplace, at which time we chose to publish her story. Again, does that ring true?
It is true that the Washington Post didn't go with the story without it on-the-record interviews and saw the therapist notes and all that and tried to do a legitimate investigation. But I've covered so many of these stories, Laura. What happens is that it becomes like an open secret. A source tells one reporter, maybe a source tells two reporters. Reporters talk to each other. Nobody quite wants to go with it because it's an explosive allegation. They don't have the complainant on the record, but eventually gets out there and somebody goes and tries to ambush the person or hang out or stalk them, and that's how it eventually hits print. And I believe that Christine Ford was sort of pressured into going public, which she clearly did not want to do.
Okay, there's another exchange we have to focus on. This was also regarding the, was it the triangle? What was it called? The
Devil's Triangle.
Devil's Triangle, thank you. This was Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon last night. Let's watch.
How does he sign it?
He signs it FFFFF.
Boy, he sure loves making fun of that stuttering guy.
That's not stuttering.
That's what he says it was.
That is not stuttering. Again, do a Google search. That FFFF is not stuttering, okay? And Devil's Triangle is not a drinking game, all right? He knows that. Everybody else does, except for maybe some senators who want to believe him.
Other tweets. This is really fascinating TV. Other tweets. If Judge Kavanaugh is shown to have lied to the committee about Jeff Flake, it's over. Jeff Flake, oh yes. Oh, it turns out, of course, it was a drinking game, and other friends of Kavanaugh, I guess, in sworn statements to the FBI. It looks like in this report, like, yeah, this was a drinking game, guys. Apparently, you're a bunch of geeks and never played it.
You got to give Don Lemon a lot of credit. He seems to know a lot about this. He accused me the other day on the show of being a racist because I had been criticizing Kamala Harris and Cory Booker for their outrageous behavior. It's like, what passes for news, no, it's racism. And but it's okay to pick on a Catholic. That's one thing that we've learned in this whole process. And I just think that, why don't we just cover the fact? I'd love to know his jurisprudence. What's his philosophy? Drinking games, Devil's Triangle?
Didn't he say that Malaysian jet went down in a black hole some months ago?
That could be racist, too.
Yeah, no, he said it was like, could it have been a black hole or something? But
I'm much more careful with my Fs.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of Fs.
I'm not going anywhere near that, guys. Fantastic segment. We're going to stay on the leak issue, by the way. Ingraham Angle investigation will continue. And 1 week after his explosive Senate remarks became the rallying cry for conservatives behind Judge Kavanaugh, Lindsey Graham stops by, tells us where things stand tonight. Don't go away. And galvanize the GOP's efforts to rally behind Judge Kavanaugh is Lindsey Graham. And 1 week after his fiery call to arms, and I loved it, the senator is feeling more confident than ever after reading the FBI report on Kavanaugh. Senator Graham joins us now to talk about that and what's next. Senator, thanks so much for being here tonight. What other games can we expect from the Democrats before this thing goes to the final vote?
Think of the dumbest idea and they'll do it, whatever that is. If they ever write a book about overplaying your hand in politics, this is in the first chapter. The FBI report, supplemental background check, they interviewed 9 people. They followed the direction of the 3 senators who asked for more FBI investigation. It came back very good for Judge Kavanaugh, and I would expect these 3 senators will vote yes. I hope they will, because that's what they asked for.
The complaint from the left, there are a lot of them. And we have a few senators, a few of your friends and others who comment today. Let's watch.
It's obviously a cover-up. The Trump White House, working with the Republican leadership in the Senate, have deliberately circumscribed this investigation. They're making a mockery of the constitutional requirement that the Senate provide its advice and consent.
That report, if that's an investigation, is a bull investigation. The reality is that is not a full and thorough investigation.
It's not full, it's not thorough. They didn't interview Kavanaugh, Ford, or Deborah Ramirez's second cousin twice removed.
To my good friends, this is advice and consent. This is your view of the Senate's role, is to take a good man's life, turn it upside down, betray Dr. Ford's trust, do everything in the world to destroy him, to hold the seat open past the midterms. That's not advised consent. That's despicable. It's going to blow up in your face. I hope it does, because it was wrong. He's going to get on the court. They have no idea what the FBI supplemental investigation was about. They made up their mind to vote no before anybody said hello. So here's what the 3 senators asked for: that the people named by Dr. Ford be interviewed by the FBI, just not the committee, and Ms. Ramirez be interviewed by the FBI. That was done, plus 5 other witnesses. The results are in. Senator Collins and Senator Flake said they thought it was thorough, they thought it was fair, and these 2 people who are my friends have no idea what they're talking about. And let me tell to my friend Bob, what y'all have done is bull.
Senator Schumer talked about the emotion that drove Christine Ford and the country rallying behind her, and it seems like he's taken this into kind of a midterm pose. Let's watch.
Yeah.
Dr. Ford came forward and won America's hearts. And our Republican colleagues were upset because that might derail their headlong rush to put Judge Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court.
Your headlong rush, you're rushing this because you want to get it through as fast as possible. Could be more of an investigation.
Right.
But this was emotionally based. And you saw those protesters today on Capitol Hill. Lots of women. They took over the Hart Office building for I don't know how long, but I mean, they promised that they're going to keep doing this, Senator Graham. They're going to keep hassling you guys in elevators and cornering you in the halls. And the protest culture, which I talked about at the beginning of the show, is going to continue.
Well, it won't work with me. I think my colleagues feel offended. As to Senator Schumer, I've never been more disappointed in you and your party. You're the ones that knew about Dr. Ford's accusations in July. She requested to remain anonymous. It was somebody on your side who leaked it to the press for a political purpose. Somebody, her own lawyers who were advised to be appointed by Senator Feinstein, the most politically active person on the left, apparently never told Dr. Ford that we have gone to California to avoid her any embarrassment. Please don't use and abuse this woman anymore. Her accusations have not been corroborated. Time, place, location, we don't know any more now than we did before. The people she named says they don't know what she's talking about. So it really offends me that Senator Schumer would continue to abuse Dr. Ford. They're the ones who are playing politics. I voted for Sotomayor and Kagan, never thought twice about it, but I'll tell you right now, this is the defining moment in the 2018 election. This is unfair.
Let's talk about repercussions for what happened.
Okay.
Either the filing of false affidavits,
right?
If that can be proved, possible, obviously, civil case defamation. But what back to this leaking issue, which we talked about on the show tonight before your appearance. It seems like someone's not telling the truth here about what happened on the Senate side.
Sure.
Do you believe what Dianne Feinstein said when she said, well, I didn't ask anyone, then she turned around and said, well, oh no, they tell me I did ask them. And no one on my staff leaked this. Do you believe that?
Well, I believe Dianne Feinstein didn't leak it, but I don't know about her staff. I do know this. Her staff recommended to Dr. Ford Ms. Katz, who hates Trump, as a politically active leftist lawyer. And apparently Dr. Ford was not told by our legal team our committee would have gone to California to do this in private. I know somebody on their side leaked an anonymous letter without a postmark.
But why not get secure their emails and texts, leaking confidential information? You're going to do that tonight?
Here's what I'm going to do. Anybody who did this is going to pay a price. The people who exposed my name, Senator Lee, Senator Hatch, that person's going to pay a price. My goal, if I'm the chairman of this committee, is to make sure it never happens again. And the best way to make sure it never happens again is to punish those who did it.
What lesson do you think the president should take out of all of this? I mean, this was a moment where the party finally, in my mind, got unified behind what this president wants to do. Economy's on fire, great judges, NAFTA renegotiated. What's next?
The president should take the following. If you appoint a good person who gets destroyed in a despicable manner and you fight for him, people will like you more. Whether you're a Trump Republican, a Bush Republican, libertarian or vegetarian Republican, we're all together now thanks to this despicable attack on a good man. Here's what I want the president to know. Do the right thing and fight for it, and you'll get rewarded. Kavanaugh's going to be on the bench. And those who tried to destroy him are going to be looked at, and they're going to pay a price. And I think this is going to help us in the midterms. I hate that this is what it took to help Republicans. But to the other side, you made the biggest mistake of your life. To the 3 Republicans, you're all friends of mine. If you were yes before this debacle, please be yes now, because everything they've said about him, Judge Kavanaugh, has fallen apart. He's a good man. 7 FBI investigations, 156 people interviewed over a 26-year period. All this stuff is garbage.
But you were a House impeachment manager back in 1998. I remember it well. Yeah. And Democrats are pledging, some, that if they take the House, they could very well move to impeach Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, getting him convicted in the Senate would be very difficult to do. Do you expect that to happen if Republicans lose the House and keep this saga going?
I think the Democratic Party's been taken over by irrationality. Hatred is their only platform. It's not about what they like, it's who they hate. And I can't believe in America you have to prove yourself innocent, that you're guilty just by the accusation, that there's no requirement to cooperate because you're Republican. If a Democratic male nominee were treated by the Republicans as Kavanaugh was treated by the Democrats, every media outlet in the country would be up in arms.
Manchin, real quick, will he vote yes or no on Kavanaugh?
If he listens to the people of West Virginia, he will. Brett deserves your vote, Joe. He's my friend. I've known him for a long time. If you listen to Schumer, then the people of West Virginia are going to remember it.
Lindsey Graham, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it tonight. Brett Kavanaugh's FBI background check came out clean, but for Democrats, that of course isn't enough, never will be. Up next, 2 former FBI agents give us insight into how this investigation likely played out. Behind the scenes, don't go away.
At best, most charitably, woefully incomplete. To put it bluntly, it smacks of a whitewash, even a cover-up.
The most notable part of this report is what's not in it.
We had many fears that this was a very limited process. Having received a thorough briefing on the documents, those fears have been realized.
Tonight, Senate Democrats are certain that the FBI didn't conduct a full investigation into the still uncorroborated charges against Brett Kavanaugh. So what happens in an FBI investigation like this anyway? Well, we wanted to hear from 2 men, decades of experience and background checks between them. Here in studio with me is Steve Pomerantz. He's a former FBI assistant director, and from Phoenix, John Iannarelli. He's a former FBI national spokesperson and special agent. Gentlemen, great to have you both with us. Steve, I want to start with you. What do you make of the Democrats' complaint that this couldn't be a complete investigation? Only 5 days, and given the timeline.
Okay, let's start with the reality here. There's not a one of them who was ever interested in the truth to begin with. This was, no matter, if the FBI would have spent 2 weeks, they'd have wanted 7 weeks. If the FBI would have interviewed 1,000 people, they would have wanted 2,000. If they went back to grade school, they'd want the FBI to go back to preschool, see if it was what happened there. So let's start with that as a reality. Look, they did a surgical investigation of focusing on some specific allegations that were made. And that's what they did, that's what they set out to do, and that's what they did. Kind of end of story, but it's not the end of the story. We both know that, and it's never going to end.
It's not good enough. John, Ford's lawyers today filed basically their own protest in a letter, and they said that they demanded that Ford be interviewed for the report's done, but it's like sound and fury signifying nothing at this point, but that Ford needs to be interviewed, and Kavanaugh, I guess, and that they need to interview Ford's husband, her various friends, and of course her, and that this is just, without that, what does this all mean? This is just a big rush job by the Republicans to get this thing done. Is there any way, shape, or form that this could be reopened at this late date, or is this just a silly, howling at the moon at this point?
Well, it sounds to me as if Ford's attorneys need to be explained what is hearsay, because interviewing people that weren't present and after the fact, any comment she may have said is not relevant to an FBI investigation. This case is not going to be reopened for the simple fact this is investigation number 7. It's not a lean report. There's 40 solid pages, single space typed, a lot of information. Just like Steve said, every detail was narrowed down to what this very surgical investigation was, it is complete.
So Steve, why didn't they interview Kavanaugh again and Ford?
Well, the argument is that they've got all they need from all the testimony and all the investigations preceded. Actually, I was hoping they would interview her because she has told her story more than once, but never been subject to a serious interview. I wouldn't want to say cross because
that's not the FBI
trial. But a penetrative, exhaustive, face-to-face impartial investigation, and that would have happened had the FBI interviewed her. Now I know we're dealing in a very sensitive area when it comes to people who allege these kinds of activities, but nevertheless, I'm sure the Bureau would have done that, and I think it would have been a good thing to do. So it's a matter of.
John, in 15 seconds, they only have one copy of the report. Senators get a half hour each to review it. Fair, unfair?
I think it's fair. These are the rules that were set up under President Obama. If they want to change the rules for the future, by all means, they can read 40 pages in a half hour.
All right, speed read, Evelyn Wood. They can handle it. All right, guys, thanks so much. And I have a question. Where do these fence-sitting senators, they're still fence-sitting, stand at this hour? And what does the next 48 hours look like for the Kavanaugh confirmation vote? A live report next. But we're now in the final 48 hours before a confirmation vote for Judge Brett Kavanaugh. And at this hour, there's still a number of key votes ahead. For the latest on where we stand, we're joined now by Fox News reporter Gillian Turner. And Gillian, what else can you tell us?
So, Laura, tonight all eyes remain laser focused on the key Republican swing votes. That's Collins, Murkowski, and Flake. So far, Collins and Flake spoke positively about the FBI report, but Murkowski says she needs more time, something in short supply for the pressure cooker that is Capitol Hill tonight.
This process has been ruled by fear and anger and underhanded gamesmanship for too long. Time for us to stand up to this kind of thing.
This is about hijacking our democracy. I am angry. I own it.
But earlier tonight, a new wrench in the plan. Senator Steve Daines, Republican of Montana, said he wouldn't be available on Saturday at any point, even if there was a vote for Kavanaugh, who he strongly supports. Daines was slated to be in Montana, walking his daughter down the aisle. Originally, his office told Fox News with the fluid timing of the FBI report release, they couldn't avoid a potential schedule conflict. But Fox News can confirm he spoke tonight directly with Brett Kavanaugh. His office says he has made arrangements to be there to get him across the finish line as needed. Now, without Daines on the Hill for that vote, the math would have been critical for McConnell. He'd have needed every single one of the 50 remaining Republicans to vote yes. That would have been Flake, Murkowski, and Collins, or two of those three plus Manchin. Now the Senate's slated to convene tomorrow morning at 9:30, and by rule, this triggers the procedural vote at 10:30. If the Senate invokes cloture at 11, they've then got 30 hours max until the confirmation vote. If they take all of that 30 hours, this puts us at about 5 p.m., Laura, on Saturday for the vote.
Yay! All right, you covering the protest tomorrow?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you my bike helmet.
Thank you.
You need
I'll
to wear a
need
bike
it.
helmet and some type of protective gear. Good luck today, tomorrow, with the protesters. Great to have you on set. And we'll be right back with the last bite. For the last bite. All right, Halloween right around the corner, and President Trump knows what scares him the most.
Can you imagine Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House? Don't do that to me. I didn't buy into that. Neither did you.
I think it was 6 years ago, I actually dressed up as Nancy Pelosi, and I carried around a copy of Obamacare, the Obamacare bill. I scared everyone in my neighborhood. All right, that's all the time we have tonight. Shannon Bream, the Fox News at Night team. Take it from